I'm opening up, I'm going to turn it over to the finance director who deals with license and assessment, and then we'll finish it with the law department. We're going to start off, again, apologizing to the Rice family if, in fact, this has added to any grief or pain that they may have. But we want to explain what happened so that both they, you, and the community at large understands what happened in regards to this. So Sharon will come up and talk to you about the license and assessment side, and then she'll turn it over to Rick Horvath, who will tell you about the legal side. Okay? All right.
Good morning.
Good morning.
We have not in the past or intended to in the future bill the Tamir Rice family for transport services. There has never been a direct bill to the family for transport services. As this body, people probably know, we transport and collect between $12 and $15 million a year in EMS transport services. So we have processes in place in order to collect from insurance companies for those transport costs. Back in January of 2015, we submitted and received a partial reimbursement, an insurance claim to Medicaid for the transport of Tamir Rice. That partial refund was in the amount of about $179.90. The transport cost was around $500. We then absorbed the difference on that claim. So no claim was ever generated to the family in the past or in the future. Rick Horvath from the law department will explain to you how the claim got reopened, because upon receipt of that money in February of 2015, the claim was closed. It was at zero. Rick.
Good morning. I'm Rick Horvath. I'm the Chief Corporate Counsel for the City of Cleveland. Earlier this week, the executor for the estate of Tamir Rice submitted a letter to the City of Cleveland asking the city to forward a billing statement for services rendered to Tamir Rice on November 22nd, 2014. This is part of his legal duty as the executor of the state. He reaches out to all potential creditors, asking them to submit a statement of any outstanding charges that are still owed. In this instance, we were dealing, as Director Dumas indicated, a reimbursement from Medicaid. Medicaid, under federal law, is a payer of last resort. If we become aware that there is a potential other source of insurance or an estate that could pay all or any of the charges, then the city is obligated to reimburse Medicaid and seek payment from that source. And that's because when we were notified that there is an estate and we were requested to submit a billing statement, the process, the routine process for the city would be to submit those charges to the probate court and reimburse Medicaid for any payments that it had made. Both of these steps are happening. The attorney who represents the Division of Assessments and Licenses followed the standard routine process when he received this letter to file the invoice for the ambulance transportation services with the probate court. That was what is filed yesterday. Because of that process being routine, none of the managers of the finance department, the law department, the mayor, any of the people standing here today were notified of this before it was filed. He was following a routine process that he has done many times before. Because, however, of the particular circumstances of this matter, now that this has come to our attention, we have made the determination to withdraw that claim from the probate court. And as the mayor said, we all sincerely apologize to the Tamir Rice family for any additional pain or suffering that this may have caused to them.
And so, to summarize, there was no intent and there was no sending of a bill either previously or now to the Tamir Rice family. We only we had paid the Medicaid, paid their portion, and we closed the account and absorbed the other 300 and something dollars as unpaid stuff. And we just absorbed it, closed the account. When the state asked for the information, which they're legally obligated to do, since they have to collect, get a statement of all debt owed so that the state can look at that, then, as Rick said, it generated the other side of the process that reopened the thing and then sent that bill to the state. No bill was ever sent to the Rice family, and no bill was intended to go to the Rice family. And now, since we're at this point, as Rick has said, that account is going to be closed again, and we're withdrawing that claim. But we're still, the state knows that is there. Okay? So it's a question.
Optics of this don't look good, mistake notwithstanding. Second time something like this has happened in regards to the Tamir Rice family. Is there going to be anything put in place with the city to say on high-profile cases, these kinds of standard procedures should be run by somebody with an ear and an eye?
Well, you must have been at my meeting a couple of hours ago, because that's exactly what I said. Remember now, if we're processing, if this $500 bill, and we're collecting 12 to $15 million a year in terms of billing, that's a lot of stuff. So most of this stuff is just routine, and it doesn't, and people don't look at every little thing. But what you said is correct, that if people do become aware of things, we want to have some checks in place, not only in the law department with a lawyer, but also in the finance department on license and assessment, if they come across something and something comes to their attention. But again, I want you to understand they process 12 to $15 million of this stuff a year. Now, this particular case, when it gets to the law department, is not 10 to 12 or $15 million. These are much smaller numbers of cases that go through that cycle. So, but your suggestion has already been made in order to both finance and to law.
So, just like this, Mayor, what are you going to do so that this doesn't happen?
Well, I'll let them figure it out, and then they'll tell me. There has to be, whenever you get into bureaucratic routine, then there's always something that slips through the crack that may not have slipped if, in fact, you didn't have the volume of work or if you could pay attention to each and everything. So they have to figure that out in license and assessment. On the lawyer side, who handles fewer of these because they don't come as often, then they'll put in place something in the law department on that. Then they'll let me know what that is. But they've been instructed to do exactly what Mr. Boomer has said.
So, Mayor, under the present system as constructed here, were there any supervisory or administrative eyes that actually had the opportunity to scrutinize or see this before it got filed?
If in fact it would have been flagged by the individuals doing it and brought to them, yes. The routine and the process of it is that you would not normally do it because it's just a routine function. But since this is, as Mr. Boomer said, a high-profile incident, then someone, yes, should have identified it and taken it to their boss, their supervisor, and said, well, this is the process, but I have this particular case. What do you want me to do with it? And so that's what we're putting in place so that we can better ensure. It's just not with Tamir Rice's family that we're looking at this. We've had other instances where there's been use of force when someone has died, and they've been transported to the hospital and things like that. So it has arisen now with this particular case, but there are other times when this stuff happens. So particularly if you have an executor who is following their legal obligation to ask everybody who has a bill or some, creditor in this case, to submit so that they can compile that estate will owe if there's money going to the estate, that's just what they do. And now that does not happen in every case where there's a use of force. But in this case, it did.
So was there a legitimate lapse or breakdown, and is it appropriate for any discipline or punitive action against anybody in the chain, up or down?
Well, I'll evaluate that. I could tell you yes and throw somebody under the bus and say, yes, I'm going to fire somebody, or I could do that. But I really, as you know, I really will look into this, and if somebody has done something that is just pure negligence or something intentional, we will handle them. But if it was just someone doing their job and didn't take the extra step, that's another question.
Now, why wasn't this red flag? Because I thought last time when this happened that it was going to be red flag.
It was a red flag, believe me. And it's the conversation that is following off on what Mr. Boomer asked, his original question. And it was not a pleasant conversation then. It will not be a pleasant conversation going forward. They will put in place those things that is necessary to ensure it doesn't happen again.
Is there any kind of timetable for that to happen?
Oh, they're on it now. They're on it now. And I'm pretty sure that the two directors have already had some conversation as to how they plan on ensuring.
So to clarify,
Yes.
the ambulance transport fee, some of that was covered by Medicaid and the rest was covered by the city of Cleveland?
No, what we do by policy, you have some insurance companies that will pay the whole bill, I imagine. And in particular, if they're a private carrier, they'll pay the whole bill. You have others like Medicaid that are limited in what they will pay. And so the policy of the city is that whenever there's that, and the likelihood of collecting the balance is nil, then what you do is you recognize that and you just write it off. You just absorb that cost internally. You just write it off. And that's what happened here. But when the executor asked in writing for the information, we are then obligated, just like he's obligated to ask, we're obligated to give. And so that's what we did. The point is exactly what Mr. Boomer has said and what you all said, is that somebody should have flagged this and said that, hey, this is a little different than others. What should I do with this? That did not happen. What I do in terms of accountability and discipline will depend on, as we review this and see if there was any just gross negligence involved or some intent.
Has there been communications with the Rice family since last night to explain how this all came to be?
No, when I got in this morning, was the first thing I did was to ask that question, how did all this come to be? Now, I'm pretty sure that you'll be communicating and this in whatever fashion you intend to do that, and the general public will know.
And I'm sorry, Mayor, just to be clear, you don't know why it wasn't red flag the last time or how this happened, you just don't know that yet?
I know that it didn't happen. The question as to why, is it because you have a aggressive person moving quickly, and you have a protocol that's been violated within the law department? I don't know those kind of details. See, I don't know those kind of details, but I know it happened.
And you're going to find out?
Oh, yeah, we're going to find out. Yes, sir.
Yeah, question for you, Rick. Isn't this claim time barred under the Ohio Revised Code?
Well, the process is the executor asked for the claim, and we filed that claim with the court. But, you know, the question is whether or not the estate was aware of the claim prior to this is something that the executor and the court will ultimately determine. So it's possible that we would be entitled to nothing under it. And if we were, then we could go back to Medicaid to seek our portion under the Medicaid insurance.
But let me just point out to you, it doesn't matter what the law says. The point is that we had already written it off. We had collected what we were going to collect it from the insurer, and we closed the case. So there was never a bill sent to the Rice family, and there never was an intent to send it to the Rice family. It just happened as a matter of course that when you have these type of things, we absorb that cost because the likelihood of us collecting is nil. And it wasn't just because it was the Rice family. It's just a policy we had. And we followed that policy. So we never sent the bill to the Rice family. And not until, and even now, there's no bill that has gone to the Rice family. A copy of what is owed, if in fact we didn't close the account, has been sent to the estate because they asked for it. If they had not asked for it, you wouldn't be sitting here today. But they have a duty and responsibility by law to ask for it. And when they ask for it, we have a duty and responsibility by law to give it to them. But at no time did we intend to collect money on this type of bill, whether it was the Rice family or not. So there was no intent. Now, so we're not trying to argue if we're past a statutory time or not. That's not relevant to us. That's not relevant to us because if in this particular case, since we do, you can imagine the numbers of these that we do on a routine basis. According to policy, you collect what you can from Medicaid, you write the balance off, and usually that's the end of it. Except when an estate asks for the bill, then you have to regenerate the thing, send them to the bill, and you file it.
It was listed as a past due claim.
Right.
And if, which seems to indicate you wanted to collect it. And if the account was closed, how did this assistant law director not know that the account was closed?
They did know the account was closed. They're obligated to do it, to process it and reopen it. They did know it was closed. And you're right, we never intended to collect the money because it's by policy. By policy, we didn't intend to collect the balance that was owed. So, and it is not just in the Tamir Rice case, it's a general policy that we had. The likelihood of someone paying is almost nothing. So you send them a bill and they don't pay you. So what do? You file a claim, and that's what's happening here. The claim was filed, not because we want the money, is that in order to proceed and meet our obligation to the executor, we had to reopen it and file the claim.
Well, why wouldn't you tell the executor that $179 had been paid by Medicaid on this?
Well,
That's the federal law question.
Right.
The federal law question is that Medicaid is a payer of last resort.
Right.
And so when we were requested by the executor to give a billing statement and we submitted that, we need to reimburse Medicaid.
Right.
It's a process that we have to follow in order to comply with federal law. So then we submit it to the estate. Eventually the determination would have been made.
Right.
Either it was not timely or for whatever reason, there's no money in the estate, there's no payment to the city of Cleveland. Then we would resubmit to Medicaid all over again. It's
Right.
the process you follow with Medicaid because you're a payer of last resort.
and these processes are very clear as to what you have to do, not only in terms of law, but just, it's just a process. So what we did, we followed.
Yes, Mayor. In terms of optics, again, I know you said that the Rice family will probably, I'm surmising, find out how this happened from media. We're screening it, others are screening it, that. But in terms of optics, have you considered sitting down with the Rice family and or sending a letter to sort of say, my culpa? Or would it put you in an untenable legal position when it comes to a civil suit to be able to sit down and in fact say?
Well, you know, if, again, you outlined the two alternatives, and you outlined pretty clear what's at risk in both of them. One is optics, and one is whether or not you're harming yourself in a legal sense. So I can't add to that. Now, it becomes my choice as to what we do. Now, I know that, give you an example, when I never talked to any of the members of the Williams family or the Russell family in regards to East Cleveland shooting. But after it was over, I did call them. And now, of course, that case has been settled civilly and all that. So, you know, it's the dilemma that we put ourselves in when we stumble over our own process, when we do it again. It's the dilemma we put ourselves in. But you clearly outline the choices.
So was this a mistake?
No, it wasn't a mistake. It was a mistake in terms of us not flagging it, but it was not a mistake in terms of the legal process. No, it followed the legal process.
And you are withdrawing that claim?
Oh, yeah, the claim.
You mentioned that it's very difficult to collect on EMS services in cases like this, in terms of use of force.
Not just use of force, anything.
But is there a dollar figure we have for how much is not collected
Oh,
every year?
I don't know. We could probably get that to you. You know, I do know that that we go to insurers, and usually you bill and insure a particular private company, and you know they'll pay the bill. But Medicaid has with them, they want to be the last resort. You see, and so, but we send them the bill. They pay their portion. Now, if the person who's on Medicaid would have paid the bill, then they would not pay at all.
Is it because this was a use of force case that the city did absorb it?
No. That's what I'm trying to tell you. This is nothing. This is routine for us. And so you had people just doing what they do every day. There was nothing here other than them just doing what they do every day. It's routine. It's routine. And that routine played itself out, and it goes back to Mr. Boomer's question. Why didn't you flag it? Well, that was, if there was something that was wrong in the process, is that we didn't flag it. There was nothing wrong in the process as to how it proceeded, because no bill still has gone to the Rice family. It never went to the Rice family in the beginning. It's not going to the Rice family now. It has gone to the executor of the Rice family estate, and it's gone to them simply because they asked for it. And when they asked for it, it was reopened, as we customarily do by law.
Who is the executive of the Rice estate?
I don't know. You can give you,
Douglas Winston.
Douglas.
Yes, exactly. Douglas L. Winston.
Well, he's just doing his job. That's what he does. They're supposed to figure out who are the creditors of the estate. That's what they do. Yes.
Now, I'm sure you're aware that the internet is kind of blown up with this. There's headlines all over the place. I mean, things you can't control. But how concerned are you about the Dateline Cleveland? The city goes after Rice family for ambulance.
Well, you know, I think you help them bring clarity as to why that happened. It would help in that regard. So my concern is how accurate you portray
But I mean, it's just a one day of kabooling headlines. I mean, you're concerned about
Well, you know, there's not much I can do about that in terms of one day headline or 2 day, or even a week's worth of headlines. Not much I can do about that other than tell you the truth. That's all I can do. And that's what I'm here doing, telling you the truth as to how this happened. Should it have happened? No, because a red flag should have been risen, but that didn't happen. Did anybody do anything wrong in this? No, because it's the normal process. It's the way in which we do things internally, but it's also what the law requires you to do. So we just followed the process and followed the law. Did it elevate itself to a point where somebody could have recognized this situation and say, hey, just don't do that? No, it didn't do that. So that's what I'll look into. But all I can do is tell the truth about it, and what I'm telling you is exactly what happened. Yes, ma'am.
Will the city release a statement about this explaining?
I'm giving it all to you.
So you want us?
I'm giving it all to you. I'm giving it all to you. This is it. This is our statement. I'm giving it to you now.
Mayor, I know you don't negotiate in public here, but are you
Yeah.
hopeful of reaching a resolution of the civil case without going through the ordeal of a trial?
Well, we're always, let me get back to Mr. Boomer's question, which I think is a couple of questions at the crust of this. We have a fiduciary and legal obligation to represent the city in the city's best interest in lawsuits. And that's what we do. But we also have the sensitivity of people and what has occurred. So we've entered into many settlement agreements in my tenure as mayor and the law director's tenure as law director. So we will work towards a settlement if, in fact, it's a settlement that we can live with and that we believe is fair to all parties. If, however, it is not, then that system and that process will work its course too, through the court system. But it's always our goal to do two things: recognizing the sensitivity of situations, whether it's high profile or not, and the fact that people and human beings are involved in this stuff, but also fully recognizing that we have a fiduciary and legal obligation to the city.
So if you had your brothers, you'd rather settle out of court if it's fair?
I won't say that. I won't say that. I would rather do right by all parties involved, and if I'm unable to do right by all parties involved, then you just do what you need to do.
Is it your intention to indemnify Lohman and Garnback in this lawsuit?
I don't think you understand the contract. We have a contract. If you read the CPPA contract, there are things in there. We are the representatives of the police because they're city employees. Now, I'm not going to go any further than saying that, because you just have to research the contract. And if you look at the contract, if you look at the contract, it is very clear what your question and the answer to your question is very clear.
But in two other occasions, you filed bankruptcy on behalf of one officer, and there's evidence that in another lawsuit that you are researching filing bankruptcy to discharge the debt.
Well, let's start off by saying that what you're asking me has nothing to do with the Tamir Rice case. Nothing whatsoever. I would like to stay focused on this incident because I'm trying not to be disrespectful to the family. I'm trying not to, even though we've done another stumble that has caused them harm, I'm trying to rectify that in the best way I can by just talking about the truth of the matter as regards to this. If you want to talk about other stuff, then that's another conversation. I'd just like to stay focused on this.
Sure. One more clarification. This claim that was filed yesterday had never been submitted before?
No, not to the family, no.
Not to the family,
okay.
Where had it been submitted before?
Not to this state either. Let me walk you through it again. When we have incident where EMS has to transport people, there's a bill generated. That bill goes to the insurer. The insurer pays the bill. In this case, the insurer was Medicaid. And they had a cap on how much they would pay. They had a cap on how much they would pay. We never sent a bill to the Rice family. We sent it to the insurer. The only reason why we've sent the bill to the estate, the attorney representing the estate, is because they asked for it. If they had not asked for it, then we wouldn't be having this conversation. But they asked for it. Since they asked for it, we're legally obligated to give them what they asked for. So no, we've never sent the bill to the Rice family, didn't intend to send a bill to the Rice family, and didn't intend to send it to the estate, but they asked for it. Since they asked for it, we sent it to them.
And ask for it why again? Why did they ask for it?
Because it's their legal obligation to determine what is the debt of the estate, who are the creditors, and who is owed money by the estate. So if there's money put into the estate, then the executor will pay off those debts. If there's no money in the estate, then the executor, those debts are washed out because there's no money there, because they're just legally obligated to do it.
I have one question there,
Yes,
and I might just be confused here, but you had said that it was already zeroed out, right? It was already zeroed out, so
Right.
was there even a bill, or?
No.
It's because it's Medicaid. We're legally obligated, they're the payer of last
Come up
resort.
here.
Medicaid is the payer of last resort. So even if Medicaid paid it, if we find out there's another source of funds or another way to pay for it, we're obligated to go there first
Right.
and reimburse Medicaid.
Right.
And
And
so
in
when-
this case, there was no obvious other source. But when the executor asks for it, then they become another source. So you're obligated by law to now reimburse Medicaid for whatever they paid, and then submit the bill to the other source.
Now, had this been red flagged, and had it been brought to your attention, what would you have done differently?
We wouldn't have filed a claim. It's just that simple. We just wouldn't have filed a claim.
Even though Medicare, you were supposed
We'd have taken care of Medicaid, we'd have met our obligation to Medicare. We did what we were legally obligated to do, but we wouldn't have filed a claim. Just like right now, we're withdrawing a claim. So it would have just been, we just wouldn't have.
So Mayor, not to be obtuse here, but so you're saying that, okay, the estate asked for it, you should have sent them what they asked for without going to court.
Here, he's saying that the estate asked for it, they asked for the bill.
Right.
So you had a choice to give them the bill without filing a claim in court. And
That's what should have happened.
we could have done it, yeah.
Well, our
Come on up
process
here.
is when executors of estate ask for it, we make an official filing. That's what we did
Right.
here. I mean, there's nothing that would prevented us from sending the bill just directly to the executor. It's, in some respects, one and the same. But our process is, we got the inquiry, there is an outstanding charge, you file it with the estate, like all the other creditors have filed it with the estate, and then it's all marshaled, and then it's assessed, whether any of them are timely, non-timely, and whether there's any money to pay any of the claims. And that'll ultimately be a part of the estate process.
Why wasn't the bill for $321?
Because when you find a Medicaid payer last resort, so that means you have to get all the money you can from another source, if you know of it, and then they'll pay the balance. In this case, there was no other source because the estate did not ask for it. We didn't know the estate existed. They didn't ask for the thing. So they paid it. They paid it. The balance is $300-something. Once we know that there's another source, you have to reimburse Medicaid for what they paid you, and you have to go after the other source for the entire bill. So that's why it's not just for the balance. It's either or. Either you send the other source the entire bill, and let's say, for instance, based on the estate, they come down, the only thing they can pay at the end of the day is half of the bill. Then Medicaid would then, you file back with Medicaid, and then it would pay its portion. But you have to use Medicaid last, not first, if that makes sense.
Attorneys for the Rice family are demanding that you close the claim by when will it be closed?
Well, we don't do things based on that. We do things based on what we're legally obligated to do and what we feel is the right thing to do. And the right thing to do is not determined by somebody else's attorney.
But you said you won't close it.
Oh, it's closed. It's going to be closed. Probably sooner than, yeah, it's going to be closed.
So today,
Well, they'll do what they're supposed to do. Yeah, they'll do what they're supposed to do. Right. They'll do what they're supposed to do. But we don't do that based on other people's demands. We do that because we believe it's the right thing to do. And we work within the law to make sure in doing the right thing, we're not violating the law. Anybody else? Now, I'm going to be here because I don't want you leaving wondering about anything.
Last night, we were reaching out to try to find out what happened. All we were told is we can't comment because it's ongoing litigation.
Well, you know.
We gotten something last night? I mean, it might
No, what happens is, well, you know how this works. It was as much as a surprise to us as it was to anybody else, right? Except for, you know, the people who actually did the deed. So it's just as much surprise. So when you ask us, just point it, when we say, well, something's in court, our normal response is what? That is a legal obligation, we're not going to respond now. So, and of course, they hadn't talked to the mayor. So this morning, they briefed me after huddling up, and they briefed me on what happened, and that recognizing that even though it is a claim, it is not to the extent that we would tell you we can't comment on it. As a matter of fact, it is in everybody's interest that we do comment on it so that there's clarity provided to people as to what happened. So that's why the immediate response was, hey, we can't comment now because, you know, they hadn't talked to me. You know, they were still trying to find out what actually happened. People were off work, all these kind of things. So when they came in this morning, they began to ferret out the facts, see what actually happened. Then they briefed me on it. And then I said to them, well, we'll at 11:30, we'll be here to talk to you so we can explain what happened.
The $300-some absorbed by the city, is that a particular fund?
No, it's a loss. You know, it's a loss. There's no fund. We don't have a fund where you pay unpaid bills from. We absorb that loss as part. It's just like any business. When you operate a business, there's a certain amount of loss that you calculate into your budget and things like that. We know that we receive a certain amount of Medicaid kind of transports, that there is no other payer of this, and the likelihood of us collecting is pretty much nothing. And so you recognize that. So when you budget out, you factor in these things. But there's no fund for that. There's no fund for that. Anybody else? Anybody else? Now, how you report is up to you. I mean, that's your business. But I just want to make sure I'm clear as to what happened from our perspective. All right? I just want to make sure I'm clear. So if you have some other...
When you first heard about this, I mean, what was your immediate thought?
You know, you're getting into that. Of course, I wasn't happy, and I think my people understand my unhappiness and corrective measures they have to take to ensure that there are proper checks and balances. Okay? All right, thank you very much. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you.